Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I finally decided to film a houseplant tour. Some of you had asked in the comments for me to do a houseplant tour, and I really wanted to do it, but I have over 100 plants, so it was gonna take me some time. It's finally here, and I hope you enjoy it. I'm gonna break it up into two parts because some of them are inside and some of them are on my patio. Part two will be the patio tour. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my apartment first and a little bit about my plants, and then we'll get started. Okay, so all of my windows are east facing, so the majority of my plants have either low to medium light requirements. The last time I counted, I had 74 houseplants and 32 cacti inside. I would consider most of my plants to be more common plants to my area anyway. Another thing that you'll notice is that I do have duplicates of some plants. So without further ado, let's get started with the houseplant tour part one. Okay, so this is the entrance to my apartment, and this side has no windows at all. Only thing I have are some track lights. So the plants that are on this side were strategically placed. The first one here is a Sansevieria trifasciata Futura robusta. And as you may know, Sansevierias can survive with very little sunlight. Moving on, this is either an Aglaonema silver king or silver queen. And this is a plant that I purchased from Home Depot, and I wasn't sure how it would do in this spot with very little light, but so far so good, and it's been here a few months now, and I really do love this plant. Moving on, this is one of my largest ZZ plants, and I consider this one of my statement plants. It's doing really well in this area of little light, but that's the beauty of ZZ plants. Moving on, this is a Dracaena Syntho, and I purchased this one from IKEA, and I found that the key to keeping this one nice and healthy is watering it with distilled water. Moving on, also in the same section, this is a Heartleaf philodendron. And these plants do really well with very low light as well. Well, let me clarify myself. They will not thrive as much as they would in a higher light situation, but they do maintain their size in low light. Okay, so moving on, this one is a lemon lime philodendron. I've had this plant for a little over a year now, and it started to get a little too leggy, so I ended up repotting it after this video. Here in this Ray Dunn bottle, I have a variegated bamboo plant. And moving on, this is a planter by Better Homes and Gardens that I got from Walmart about a year or so ago. On the bottom here is a neon pothos. This is a plant that I got from Lowe's. And on the top here is a Mandula pothos. And as you can see, the nursery pots are showing, so I'm gonna probably repot those directly into those ceramic pots. Okay, here on top of my refrigerator is another Mandula pothos. Moving on here into my kitchen, I have a little propagation section going on here. I just have these bottles from IKEA with some Hoya Carnosa Princess here in the front. In the back here, I think that's a Philodendron Brazil, and then in the back is a Heartleaf philodendron. And usually I end up propagating pieces that I accidentally break off. This here is a bamboo plant. It used to be more variegated than that, but there's not enough light, so it reverted. Here's another little propagation station here in the kitchen. And on the left here, I have a Philodendron micans. You can see the roots there. And this is a piece of my Hoya Wyetii, and this is a coleus plant. Moving on here to the living room area is one of my largest golden pothos. And for this area, I wanted a really long trailing plant because the ceilings are really high. And because the ceilings are so high, the plant needed to be long enough in order to show the beauty of the plant. And moving on, down here is an Aglaonema Maria. Moving on, right across from that is my Raven ZZ. And this was one of the first Raven ZZs I purchased about a year ago from the Costa Farms Trending Tropicals line. As you can see, this is all new growth that's coming out green. Hopefully it'll get enough light to turn black. And here is my variegated Aurelia Ming. I have this placed on my work desk right now, but I think I'm going to have to move it outside sooner or later because it needs more light. Up here on top of my bookshelf is a Marble Queen pothos. I really love how the variegation on the leaves look like splash paint. I've only had this plant for maybe 2 months now, and it's already been shooting out a lot of new leaves, so I'm hoping it starts trailing even more. This one down here is a blue Sansevieria. It's similar to the Samurai Sansevieria, but the coloration is a bit different. Here is another heartleaf philodendron, and like I said, I do have duplicates of plants in here. Moving on, this one is a Sansevieria cylindrica, or better known as a starfish Sansevieria. Right next to that is a jade pothos that I purchased from Lowe's while I was in Georgia. As you can see, it's in one of those urban jungle pots, and I'm really loving this one so far. Moving down on the same bookshelf, this is a Philodendron Brazil. I really like the neon yellow variegation on those leaves. Down below that is a Hawaiian pothos, and this is very similar to the golden pothos, but there are some differences. And one that's very apparent is the very vibrant yellow variegation. Right next to that is an Aglaonema, and I found that sometimes this is called either a white lipstick or a white paradise. I purchased this one from Lowe's, and it pretty much has the same care tips as other Aglaonemas, very low light requirements. Now moving on to my living room area, this is my plant wall, and this is where I keep the bulk of my plants, including most of the smaller potted plants. The first one here is a type of Aglaonema, and I'm not sure what the type is. This is a plant that I got from Home Depot. It was one of the ones that wasn't labeled. And as you know, there are so many Aglaonemas, so I'm not sure on that one. This one here is a variegated peperomia, one that I purchased from Walmart for $5, and it's growing up really nicely. Right next to that is a Calathea white star, and this one's hanging in there by a string. Doesn't look too bad here, but when I bought it, it did have maybe about double the leaves than it has now. Here is my Philodendron Birkin. As you can see, there's a new leaf in the middle that's unfurling. I really love this one. And right here to the left of that is a type of philodendron. I also purchased this from Home Depot, and it was another one that was not labeled. I've done a little bit of research, and it may be a philodendron urubescens, but it has green stems, so it also could be a philodendron emerald green. Moving on, here is my little baby philodendron gloriosum. This has 2 leaves on it, and there's one shooting out in the soil. Let's see if you can see it right here. So hopefully I can get that one to grow another leaf, but I think it needs more humidity, so I'm working on that. Moving on, here is another neon pothos. And here is a type of haworthia, I believe. Maybe some sort of zebra haworthia hybrid, but I'm not sure on that one. And right next to that is my famous whale fin sansevieria that was purchased from Home Depot for $4.98. As you can see, there's a little baby shooting out now, and it's doing just great. I probably only watered it once since I got it. So that's the bottom area of my plant wall. Now moving up to the shelves. Here on the right here is another golden pothos. Next to that is a jade sansevieria. Right next to that is my Tradescantia nanook. And I recently had to move this plant outside because it wasn't doing so well inside. This plant really does need a good amount of sunlight. Also next to that is a curly spider plant that I purchased from Trader Joe's. As you can see, it's shooting out a little baby here. And this plant is not doing that well here inside either. So that one went outside for a second chance. Okay, so here next to that is a red Maranta prayer plant. And I just love the variegation on those leaves and the red undersides. Next to that is another philodendron Brazil. I just love how full and lush this plant is, and it was only $13 from Walmart, so I couldn't pass it up. Okay, moving on to the top plant shelf. So on the left here is a Scindapsus pictus argyraeus. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but I'll put the name on the screen. This is also known as the silver pothos. And next to that is a bromeliad. I'm not a huge fan of bromeliads, but I do like when they have a distinct type of foliage. And as you can see, this one has a zebra-like print. And moving on, this is an Aglaonema wishes. I love the pink variegation on the leaves. And it's another easy care plant. Moving on, this is a Scindapsus pictus exotica, and I've had this for over a year now. And when I first purchased it, it was in a 6-inch pot, and it wasn't really growing very much, and it was in the same exact spot. So I went ahead and I moved it outside, and as soon as I moved it outside, it started thriving, growing lots of new leaves and even trailing. And that's when I decided to move it back inside because that's the look that I was initially going for. So here you have it, guys. That is my plant wall in my living room area, and these plants get switched out quite often based on the look I'm going for at the moment. Moving on, here is my Monstera deliciosa. And this is a plant that I purchased from Lowe's for only $14.98, and you can't beat that. This is a pretty large size plant, and it has a bunch of babies coming out on the bottom. There's some fenestrations, and it gets a decent amount of light in this area of my living room, which is closer to the window. That's another new leaf. Pretty soon this is going to need to be repotted. I usually water this about every 2 weeks. Moving on, this is a philodendron micans. And I just love how beautiful and velvety the leaves are on this plant. It really hasn't been growing too much for me since I purchased it. I would like for it to get a little fuller, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, over here next to my sliding door window is an IKEA plant stand with 3 plants. The first one here is a Silver Bay Aglaonema. As you can see, it's growing a new leaf, but this plant does need to be repotted soon. I still have it in the original nursery pot, and it's most likely root bound by now. Here is a domino peace lily. It's full of variegation, very beautiful, but requires a lot of water. And I usually have to water this every other day, so it's a bit of a drama queen. And here is a narrow leaf Monstera adansonii. And I just have it trailing down the plant stand. I kind of like how that looks. This piece right here, I'll probably stake up to make it look a little better. And right across from that is another IKEA plant stand. Here is a Thanksgiving cactus that I purchased from Walmart. This one is a chocolate anthurium. Next to that is an African violet. And I love those velvety leaves. Down on the bottom shelf is another Thanksgiving cactus. This one has yellow blooms. And here are a bunch of silver pothos and variegated marantas that I purchased from Lowe's in 2-inch pots. And I went ahead and stuck them in this little blue basket temporarily, but I ended up leaving them in there because I just liked how full and pretty they looked in there. So it's just a temporary spot for them right now. Eventually I'll take them out and repot them, but I just love the variegation on those marantas, and these silver pothos grow like weeds. Moving on to my coffee table in the living room. This is a Calathea mosaica, also known as a Calathea network. And this is from the Costa Farms Trending Tropicals line. I've had this for over a year now, and it's pretty easy care for it being a Calathea. I think I probably water it once a week, but other than that, it's not very finicky. Okay, moving on to my bedroom. Here is a large lucky bamboo plant. And those stones are not glued in, so no worries about that. And right next to that is a Paphiopedilum black cherry orchid. I purchased this from Lowe's when I first got it. It had a beautiful burgundy flower, and the flower is now gone, but it's still left with this beautiful foliage. Right next to that is a Sansevieria sayuri, and I just love the variegation on these leaves. This is a very easy care plant. I believe I've only watered it maybe once since I've gotten it, and I've had it for at least 6 months now. And here I have another ZZ plant. This was actually the very first ZZ plant I've ever purchased. I got this in a 6-inch nursery pot from Home Depot for $9.99. Here I have a Silvery Ann Scindapsus pictus. Here on the other side of the dresser is another Mandula pothos. And as you can see, it has some all green leaves. I'm probably gonna cut this part out so it can continue with the beautiful variegation that it has. Right next to that, I have another Silvery Ann Scindapsus pictus. And here on this TV stand is another Hawaiian pothos. And here next to the window in my bedroom is a Copper Spoon Kalanchoe, and this one also has very nice velvety leaves. Moving on, this is probably my most expensive plant purchase to date, and this is my variegated ZZ plant. As you can see, it has quite a bit of variegation, which is very beautiful, but it is a very slow growing plant. Also here in my bedroom is this beautiful Hartley philodendron, and I purchased this from Aldi for about $7.99. I have it in a macrame hanger, and it's one of my favorite plants in the house. I love how it's trailing. Some of the new leaves are coming out on the smaller side, but I guess it's because it's not getting as much sun as it should. And right across from that is another Philodendron Brazil. I've had this plant for over a year now, and because it's in a very low light situation, it is losing most of its variegation. Another thing I wanted to mention is when I purchase my plants, I like to purchase them already full or on the larger side because of the fact that I have very low light in my apartment. They don't usually grow much bigger than what they are when I purchase them. Okay, moving on to the plants in my workroom. The first one here is a cane begonia, and it's surprisingly doing well in this room. It's actually put out this new leaf, and it has a couple of new leaves coming out as well. Right to the left of that is my chocolate aglaonema. And as you can see, it has those beautiful burgundy undersides of the leaves, and the top side of the leaves have a really nice pattern and also has somewhat of a camouflage look to the top side of the leaves. Here we have another golden pothos. This one was purchased from Trader Joe's for $7.99, and it has very large leaves on it. I don't know if you can tell from the video, but it is pretty big. Here I have another Raven ZZ, and as you can see, it has some new growth shooting out. If you look closely at the leaves, you can see that the tips are black. So hopefully eventually they'll turn black as well. Right next to that is my ZZ Zenzi plant. And this is just a more compact version of your regular ZZ plant, but I really love this little plant. By the way, this room is where I keep most of my aglaonemas. This one here is an aglaonema red siam, but as you can see, there's a lot of variations in the patterns of the leaves. Some of the leaves have blotchy pink with green, others have green with pink veining, and then there's some with green and red outlining. And I really wasn't expecting that when I purchased the plant, but it's really turned into something very beautiful. Okay, up here in a macrame hanger is an aglaonema sparkling Sarah. On the other side of the window is an aglaonema Etta Rose. And this one shoots out all different types of leaves. Some of them have green with blush pink. Other ones are just dark green with speckles of white. But I really love this one. So lately I've been collecting quite a few cacti, and I'm still learning all the names, but I just wanted to go through them quickly with you so you can see what I have. And as you can see, most of them are still in the nursery pots, but eventually I will be transferring them directly to the clay pots. So this one here is my Euphorbia White Ghost. So here in the window I have a variegated opuntia. Here's a domino cactus. This one's a devil's tongue cactus, another variegated opuntia. This one's a golden barrel cactus. Here's an old man of the Andes. And this one is my totem pole cactus, which is a spineless cactus. Very smooth. And here I have another Euphorbia lactea. This one I believe is called a variegated dragon bones. And I really like this one because of the green and white variegation. But it also has this left arm with all white variegation, as you can see here, which makes it very unique. So guys, this is almost the end of my very first houseplant tour part 1, but since I filmed this video, I have purchased quite a few plants in the month of January, so I'll be doing an update video so you can see what I got. Until then, so stay tuned for part 2 of my houseplant tour, which is the patio edition. And I think you're really gonna like that one because some of my favorites are actually out there.